There are 6 heart codes that will unlock your soul. Hear me out. I had spent over 10 years in healthcare, specifically taking care of cardiac patients, so caring for people in their hearts. And what I had perceived is that way more people actually needed help in reviving and connecting to their soul than they actually did with their heart. And it's kind of intertwined, like help fix the heart, help be connected to the heart, help the heart work in the proper way it's supposed to, get connected, and then you're kind of helping the soul get connected, reviving the soul. So when you have heart problems or when you have disconnection of the efficiency of your heart, the feelings, emotions, everything that comes to it emotionally, spiritually, and physically, you have that direct result of disconnection to your soul. Now, with my experience of the physical heart, I had discovered 6 codes that really needs to happen in order for a fully functioning, fully healthy heart. And those directly correlate to what the soul needs to. And I'm going to be reviewing 2 of those codes that are all of this that I'm going to be talking about is actually in my free workbook, and it's called 6 Heart Codes to Unlock Your Soul. You can find that in the link. I'll put that in the show notes. It's a really cool tool to get you kick started into this journey of this heart soul connection. And I realized that these 2 codes that I'm going to review with you right now is really 2 biggest ones that made me feel so lost and disconnected and confused and looking in all the wrong places. Most of my 20s, pretty, just a huge chunk of my life, just really in search of this yearning, this connection, what am I doing? Why am I doing it? Just lost kind of feeling. And I found myself looking in other people and relationships and sex and alcohol and traveling and avoiding and all the things that we have in our mainstream society that can really either add to your life or really disconnect you from your life. And I mean, everything within attention and in moderation and in the right mindset is either going to be really helpful to you or it's going to be detrimental. And I just really squeezed out all of the juice of all the things that would really cause more detriment to myself because I felt really disconnected from my soul. And I was searching for it for as long as I can remember. And which is the weirdest thing because you're ultimately not ever really disconnected to it. It's just you kind of don't remember. You don't remember that you have the connection. So you're never really severed from it. It's just about building that connection back again and starting to listen to it, build the relationship, realize that it's everything that you're in searching for is actually all within inside yourself. So anything that you hear or listen to or things that you learn from other people, it's all things that you can ultimately apply to yourself and you get to determine whether or not it's going to be helpful or not. And really, all of that is just tools that people are giving you to help you build your own connection. In my opinion, anything that you receive from people is ultimately help for you if it's really going to be helpful for you, if that makes sense. So let's go into the first code. The first one that I want to review is nourishment, which is actually the first code. And with this, I'll describe to you what it is and we'll dive into it a little bit further. But the heart needs to be nourished in order to operate at full capacity. The heart needs, for an example, electrolytes, nutrients, oxygen, all of that to thrive. And just as the soul needs a mixture of physical, emotional, intellectual, and spiritual sustenance to thrive. So basically, we need the correct things in our body to be ingested, our environment, oxygen, nutrients, food, all these things. We need these, we need to be nourished in order for our heart to physically thrive. And the same way that our soul literally needs to be nourished to feel like we are thriving, to feel like we are alive and present and doing the things that we want to do, we need to feel nourished. And that comes in so many different ways. And really, it's it has to touch on all of those points. You can have 2 of those points feel really good, but then feel way not nourished in your life because you're missing the other parts. It has to be this collective ball of energy that your soul needs to really feel like it's thriving. And this is like part of, where I feel like I was starting to turn things on in myself, because I felt like I got one thing and then I got the other thing. And then I'm like, okay, what about this thing? And you need all of these to like weave together in your life in its own kind of balance to feel really nourished, to really feel like you have a nourished soul. So one of the exercises I take you through in this workbook is to first recognize where you are feeling nourished in your life right now. Like maybe you have a lot of joy in your friendships, in your emotional life, you feel connected, you feel loved. Maybe you're learning something that you're excited about, so your intellectual level, and you feel really like, yes, I'm learning something really cool, and I have all of this energy towards what I'm studying. But then maybe your physical, where your heart is contained, or maybe your heart in general, the physical part of things feels a little bit not so great. Like maybe you have lack of energy, you're tired, you're anxious, you can't sleep, all of these things. So that could be the missing piece. So basically, I want you to first see where you feel nourished in your life. At what point, what categories do you feel like, yes, nourished in that spot? So you have physical, emotional, intellectual, and spiritual, all of those things. So which ones do you have the strongest? Maybe you can rank them 1 to 4. Where do you feel really good and be like, yes, that is giving me life. This is feels really good. Like I feel really fed after I have this conversation with someone, or after I work out, or after I read something really cool. I want you to identify where that is going good. And then I want you to see where in your life you could create more nourishment in your soul. Where could you feel even better? Maybe pursuing a certain passion, or going to a side project, or shifting your career. Maybe you want more meaningful conversations. Maybe you want more connections and more friendships with people that you can talk about these spiritual concepts, or you can talk about, what you're wanting to create in the world, or maybe you really want a relationship where you can feel seen and understood. Maybe it's romantic, maybe it's friendship, maybe it's a different structure with your parents. Maybe you want to consume different content. You don't want to maybe spend so much time on social media, or you want to read more books, or you want to follow different accounts that inspires and educates you rather than makes you feel like shit. You could kind of see what lists you're creating, and then I want you to set a time each week to like act on one of those things. So this is like a lot to handle, especially if you feel like, shit, I don't feel nourished in anything that I'm doing. So it's like really starting with one point, starting with one area of your life of like, this is the point, this is the pinpoint where I want to flood more attention and energy and time into, because when you change one thing, you change everything. And it just does that. It's when you start to shift one aspect of your life, all the other aspects can't help but change, because you're shifting something in your energy, and you're shifting something on how you're perceiving it, how you're being in the world. So say, for an example, you got really inspired to take better care of your body. So you start doing yoga, or you start going on a run or walking, and you start doing this daily practice where you go on a walk in the afternoon and you get your 10,000 steps in. You're going to start feeling better. You're going to start having more mental clarity. You're going to start being able to process things better. Like all of these other sequence of events happens, this domino effect. When you make one shift, you can't help but make the other shifts in your life. It's just a domino, it just happens. So when you start at one area, the other areas will start to unravel. So just pick one part of your life where you're like, I would love to be more nourished here. If it's relationships or friendships, how can you connect to people that are interested in what you're interested in? Can you go to forums, coffee dates, meetups, podcasts, introduce yourself to people, get in people's DMs? I think that especially as we get to become older, sometimes it can feel like it's more difficult to make friends because you're not in like school making friends, but really you just need to start being more in areas that you want to be. So like if you're interested in knitting, or I was at this coffee shop actually because that popped up. When I had lived in St. Louis, I was reading a book at a coffee shop, and I accidentally sat in this like circle of women that were actually in like a knitting group, and it was like an empty seat in a couch, and I was like just had picked it was busy, so I was like, I'll just sit here. And so then I ended up like being immersed in this community of like everybody was kind of knitting or talking about knitting, and here I'm reading. But it's like something like that. If that's something you like to do, or it's something you want to learn, like go join a group that does that. Like put yourself in areas where you have people that are interested in that too. And that seems so simple, but we really don't do that. We just kind of stick with the people that we hang out with, we stick with the things that we want to do, and then we just kind of wonder why nothing kind of changes or we don't meet the people that we would want to meet. I have met so many friends doing that, and specifically to retreats. So if you're able to go to an event or a retreat, I have met the coolest women at retreats. And so in the future, I would love to be hosting retreats, but we'll get to that when the time is ready. But I'd love to foster a community in a space where people can meet and be in community and talk about all this like juicy stuff. And yeah, so those are different areas that you can really explore. So those are the two. Oh, okay. So that was the first one, nourishment. And the second code, which is not code number 2, this is actually going to be code 5, but I want to go over this one instead of the second one. So code 5 in the workbook is vitality and energy. So this is the other key piece that was like super missing in my life. And it is really difficult to like put a finger on what's wrong in your life when you like feel like everything's wrong. And okay, so code 5 is really important. Energy is needed. So vitality and energy. Energy is needed to sustain life itself. If there's no energy for the electrical impulses to be sent to the heart, it cannot function. The same goes for your soul. If there is no supply of energy that will sustain the soul, life begins to feel very depleting, dark, hopeless. Soul energy is about managing and directing your personal vitality. So, this really goes along with nourishment, I think, so well, because when your soul is feeling not even, yeah, when you're just feeling so like, ugh, like you are drained, you're exhausted, you're just living the 9 to 5, or all you feel like you do is like this routine, or there's no zest, there's no spiciness, there's no spark, there's no excitement. Maybe you're feeling super mundane in your day to days, and you're just like, it's all starting to feel really bland. This is a huge sign that there is a lack of vitality here, because when your soul is ignited and really thriving, it is like you're feeding it things that it continues the fire and the spark. And this really starts to wear on you and have really start to give you all of these issues in your life, feeling like you're more depressed, or just feeling like a lack of energy to do anything. And a huge drain on this, literally, something called energy drainers, energy depleters. So one of the exercises in the workbook that I would walk you through is really figuring out and tallying up on two. So you could take a piece of paper, split it down the middle, and on one side, make a list of anything and everything that feels energy depleting. Like when you do this thing, when you talk to this person, when you go to this place, you feel worse than what you did before. You're just like, this was just the worst experience. And it could be very subtle, or it could be very obvious. So take this piece of paper with you and take it with you throughout the week. And whenever you feel depleted from an experience, from a task, from anything that you're doing, write it down on the list, no matter how silly or random or what you think could be mean or whatever. Write it down. And then on the other side of the paper, I want you to make a list of all energy adders and any experience that you feel like a burst of energy, a boost of spark of inspiration of like maybe you went to an art class, or maybe you had a really good conversation with someone, or you walked outside and you feel really good, or you had a phone call and you're just like, wow, I feel so great. So I want you to make a list. Just carry the piece of paper with you for a week and literally just focus on the list. And it will show you so much of what's going on in your life. And this can be a huge way that you can already shift the energy and vitality in your life by just recognizing where you feel like something is pulling at you, dragging you down, drained. So you don't have to make any changes with that list, but it does give you at least the awareness of what's happening. The next step after that would be like, okay, how can we chip away at these depleters, eliminate them, shift them, talk to these people, or give this task to somebody else, restructure it to where we can move it to an energy adder, or at least kind of eliminate it altogether. So I think that would be, not even I think, I know that in my life, this is one of the things that completely shifted things of like, oh shit, I actually don't have to do the things that I hate doing, or like people that make me feel like shit, I actually don't have to be around. I can actually choose my own energy rather than feeling obligated to this relationship or to this situation or to this, task that I feel like I have to do. Like, do you actually have to do it, or do you think you have to do it? Can you hire it out? Can you ask somebody else to do it? Can you just say, oh, we're just not going to do this anymore? So anyways, if you'd like to see what the other codes are in the workbook, go down to the link, download it for free. You'll get it right into your email, and it is loaded with exercises that will really start to unlock your heart and unlock your soul to really just zest up the energy that you feel in your life. So if you feel impacted by this, if it's worked for you, if you tried this out, please reach out to me and let me know how it's gone for you. I would love to hear your feedback with that. And if you've enjoyed this episode, or if you feel like somebody could really use the workbook or these 2 codes, please send this episode. You can really appreciate if you would like or follow. If you're watching this on YouTube, you could subscribe. And if you're listening to this on the podcast, I'd super appreciate if you could leave a review of your experience on the show listening so far. It really helps me grow the show and continue to put really good content out for you guys. So, anyways, until then, I will see you in the next episode, and I hope you feel more energized, more vitality, and more nourished in your life after applying some of these exercises.